Yes.
Hi, how are you?
Good, Darren.
Hey,
Sorry,
hello.
sorry about that.
No, that's all right. I
Doing
know.
so. It's
Yeah,
the time we've been actually mapping out our ride for the summer. We're planning on Maine to Toronto.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. So it's thank you for meeting us. You're a
Yeah.
bit of a celebrity, so we appreciate the time.
Yeah, I don't normally, take do phone calls or video or something, but you had a lot of questions, and I just thought, well, if I could take the time and record it, maybe that would help not only you but other people also.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're not really super presentable right now, but that's
Me
you
either.
know.
That's all right. Yeah.
So, really, I think that the biggest we we've done several bike trips, but not anything long distance. We've ridden. Well, actually, that's not true. We've ridden Korea twice now.
Oh wow.
We rode the east coast of Taiwan, up from Taitung to Hualien. We transected Korea from Seoul to Busan, and then we did the east coast of Korea just this past Chuseok, which is like the Korean Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Um, and so one of the things that we'd really like to do is the northern tier, the adventure cycling northern tier.
Yeah.
Problem is we don't have a ton of time during the summers. We have about 8 weeks,
Hmm.
but we can't spend the whole time on a bike. So we're gonna jump right in with doing Maine to Toronto
Okay.
as kind of a piece it out. And one of the uh, problems is that we don't own touring bikes. We have hybrid crosses.
Hmm.
I've got a good Trek that's good for 5 day, 6 day, 8 day ride. But then when you start getting into longer rides with panniers and stuff, we need something really good
Yeah.
um, to carry some weight. And we're also taking our dog with us. We have a little 10-pound dog.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to ask you about. So,
Yeah, and so we have been looking at three particular bikes. The first one, and feel free to start recording. I don't know if you already are.
yeah, I started it here when you
Okay.
started talking. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So we're considering the Kona Sutra,
Mhm.
the long haul trucker, the Surly,
Yeah.
and we're also considering the Trek 520. We looked at the 720, but it's the reviews that we're seeing are it's really more of a commuter bike. It's not a touring bike,
Yeah.
at least not a pure touring bike. It's got a carbon fork, and it's a little bit more kind of aggressive in terms of its geometry.
Yeah, it's more like a sport touring bicycle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So basically, where we're at is, the problem is that we or not the problem, but the challenge is that we don't have the ability to actually test ride these bikes.
Yeah.
We were just recently in the United States, and we went to several bike shops, and none of them have touring bikes on the floor.
Yeah.
And the likelihood of finding a touring bike that we could actually ride so we can figure out sizing and what we prefer is very, very difficult. All of the advice that we were getting really came down to you just kind of have to bite the bullet, buy one, and then adjust it to your needs.
Yeah.
So
Which doesn't nobody wants to hear that. You know what I
right,
mean? But yeah, like that is like one of the things that I talk about in my book, The Essential Guide to Touring Bicycles, is like the fact that when you go to your local bike shop, they're carrying the bikes that they make the most money off of. You know what I mean? And the most of their audience wants to buy. And so touring bikes, because bike touring is so niche, most shops don't carry them. And if you go in there, probably what you found is like they aren't going to order one just so you can check it out. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly. And not only that, but they, quite frankly, have limited knowledge. I met this one guy, old man on a bicycle. He
Hmm.
was in a store in Naples, Florida. He's got a website, Old Man on a Bicycle,
Okay.
and he basically said, he's been all over the world several times, but he had to kind of figure out what bike worked for him in the process, kind of like building the plane while it's in the air rather than
Yeah.
figuring it out on the ground.
Yeah, it's true.
The other piece that that we wanted to talk to you about was, you know, we've seen your videos and we see how you travel. You've got front and back panniers. We are considering, because of the dog, we're considering things like a bob.
Yeah.
Or possibly even some of the bike shop people were floating ideas of real minimalist, these new packs that they've got.
Like bike packing.
Yeah, super minimal. A frame bag and then something that comes off the seat tube.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. And then maybe a headset, and that's it. A front bag on the headset. Yeah. So and we're not real clear on how we're going to do the trip yet in terms of credit card trip or whether we're going to camp but for the most part we're going to equip ourselves for the long haul. And we just want to get the appropriate bike.
Right. Well, for me at least, like when I hear long haul, that generally means camping. At least not all the time, but maybe sometime. You want to have the option to camp.
Yeah.
And so then you're talking about getting a bicycle that can carry camping equipment in addition to whatever normal stuff you need. So, like you said, like it's probably a heavier duty touring bicycle. And the Northern Tier, I believe, I haven't cycled that route myself, but I think there are some dirt road sections or something.
I'm familiar with that, but I do know that there's several mountain passes that need to be climbed, and so with regard to the likelihood of there being some kind of off-road, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's like maybe it was just maybe I'm thinking of like road construction or something. The last couple of years, I know that there was like ripping out 10 miles and you're on the gravel, but I don't know. But any of those three bikes I think would be good. I think the Surly Long Haul Trucker is probably more of like the heavy duty bike of the three that you mentioned, whereas the other two are lighter, right. More like almost like in lines with like commuting / touring. Yeah.
What do you ride?
Well, I have a Co-Motion Pangea now, which is much more. It's built for off-road, Like I rode it in Africa and stuff like that. But that's not what you want, I think. I think you want more of a bike like the ones you mentioned. As far as like test driving it though, I think you did actually get, sadly, the advice that I would give is like you kind of just have to do your research and then bite the bullet and pick one. And make sure you get the right size. I mean, that's the most important thing. You know what I mean?
Do you have any advice on how to appropriately size? Because each bike is made by a different manufacturer.
Yeah.
Sizing.
Well, yeah, I do. And so, like, I don't know what it's like in Korea, but normally what I do is I, like, find a local dealer that sells that type of bicycle. I say, they aren't going to have, maybe that particular model or whatever, but they'll have other bikes of the same one. And so stand over them, test drive those, find out what size those are, and then get that same one, because they should be pretty darn close,
Ironically, most of these bikes are manufactured. I mean, I'm not sure about this.
Manufactured over there.
That's right.
Yeah, right. And then sold over here, which doesn't make any sense. What, like, were you able to find dealers in? I don't know what it's like there.
Yeah, there are several. In Seoul specifically, Trek has a real big stronghold here, and so does Giant. Specialized has some stores. There's a lot of concept shops here, and so they're selling very, very high-end bikes. $10,000 full carbon road bikes. Mountain bikes that are going for $10,000-$15,000. Just ridiculous. And people are riding them around, and certainly the bike culture here is incredible. But to get a touring bike here, I haven't looked into it deeply, but all the bike shops that I've been to, I haven't seen anybody that carries the Surly or the Kona. I've seen there's several Trek shops here, and so I could order a Trek 520 easily.
Yep.
Do you have experience with the Trek 520?
Yeah, I do. My friend Brandon, that I don't know if you've been reading my website for too long, but 2012 I went to Iceland with my friend
Yep.
Brandon, and he rode a Trek 520 on that trip, and obviously I borrowed it from him on time to time.
Yeah.
But but I mean, like we went into the interior and stuff on this also, so we were riding it off road and stuff. So especially the fact that you have access to the treks, I would lean that direction. Because also, like, I have not ridden the Kona Sutra, but the Surly I have, it's a heavy bike, you know? Like, it's cheap. That's one of the best things about it, and why it's so popular, I think, is because it's one of the cheapest touring bicycles out there. But honestly, I think the Trek 520 is better made. I think it's lighter. Um, I just like it more. Overall,
So,
that's my personal preference, and especially the
yeah.
fact that you have access to it, I would definitely be leaning that way.
Can you tell me a little bit about the Kona was attractive to me because it includes in the purchase, it comes completely outfitted with
The
fenders,
racks,
with
yeah,
racks, with a Brooks saddle.
yeah,
Um, there's it's kind of the value add for a little bit more than the others.
yep,
It's fully outfitted and ready to go. Without the panniers, obviously, but
yeah.
the racks and the fenders, all the headset stuff is ready to go. Do you have any
Yeah.
thoughts about that?
I I mean, my thoughts are, yeah, I like the bike too, but I just don't know. I haven't ridden it. You know what I mean? So I don't know anything. That's the. I'd like to get my hands on one, I guess.
Yeah.
You know,
Um,
like you.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So I guess then another question would be, how do you keep track of where you are and where you're going when you're on the road?
yeah.
Aside from the actual machine that you're riding, what sort of infrastructure do you have with you that kind of helps to keep you on track where you're going?
Yeah. Well, like for the trip you're doing, like I would have a paper map, even if it's just like a big one of all of, the
Yep.
whole that whole side of the country or something.
Yep.
But like normally now, like I do everything on my smartphone pretty much,
Yep.
and like you have a smartphone,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like I use an offline mapping application called Maps.me, and I think it's free, Maps.me. Um, and yeah, and you like basically like if you know you're going to Canada, you download the Canada map
Sure.
to your phone, and then and you can like create routes and stuff like that on there too. But yeah, and then you have like all of Canada on your phone, and you don't have to access Wi-Fi or internet through your cell provider or anything. So yeah,
Do you travel with any sort of GPS location or anything like that? Like
like a spot sort of thing or
yeah,
something.
like Garmin makes a really cool unit
Mm,
where you can actually kind of download Strava and Map My Ride GPX files.
right.
Um,
I haven't, just because it's one more thing to do and one more thing to carry, and one more thing to keep charged too.
right.
Because like if you're gonna bring your phone, then you're gonna bring a GPS and maybe another camera or something too, So yeah, I don't know. I've always just thought, well, my phone does it, so and you could probably have some GPS functionality on your phone as well.
Yeah,
But
that's true. I purchased your touring bike buyer's guide.
oh yeah,
One of the things that I was curious about. Let's see if my train of thought just left me.
no, that's all right.
The oh God, what was I going to ask you about? There's a discussion in there about it's about the size of the wheels, the 26 versus 700 cc.
Yep.
So I understand the reality is that we're not going to be going around the world.
Yeah.
We're probably going to be sticking with North America for the time being. Um, Obviously, if we did go around the world, or if we did something outside of the United States, we'd want to go with the 26-inch tire or
Yeah.
26-inch wheel. Um, are they interchangeable, or when you buy the bike, are you kind of stuck with the wheel size?
You're kind of stuck with the wheel size. Yeah, because like it affects everything from like I don't know, like the width. Sometimes you wouldn't be able to get a 26-inch tire in there, and it also depending on the brakes that you have, like the brakes will be completely different and stuff. So yeah, you're kind of stuck. But I don't know. I mean, like where you live right now, you'll be fine with 700C. You know, like in all of Asia, I would imagine you'd be pretty much fine with that. Europe, North America, Australia, you know, like the only real places I would say are South America and Africa, where you'd be like, ugh. You'd really have to go to a big city like Cape Town or something like that, you know, versus some little, you know, jungle town which would have everything.
700C provides you with a uh,
bigger tire.
Bigger tire that you're higher up off the ground, right?
Yeah, yeah. Generally, yep.
And do you find that throughout your journeys that you have the need to really bring extra, you know, obviously you want to be equipped, but have you broken spokes and popped not just tubes but tires and
I still like am experimenting with that like after 15 years because it seems like on my first trip I brought a spare tire with me and then never used it. So then like the next trip I left it at home and then I needed it. You know what I mean? So it was like and that seems to be like always how it is. I think like now I'd probably carry like more like an emergency, like the fold-up tire, you know, like down small in my bag, rather than have the big one on the back of my bike. Just because then like you can rest comfortably knowing that it's there in case something does go wrong, but it's not so annoying that it's taking up a whole lot of space. And if you do need it, then that tire will at least get you to a shop where you can get a better one. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So I think that's probably what I would do now. But again, it depends on where you're going and stuff. Like I think in Europe, like there's bike shops every 50 kilometers. So like you really don't need a spare tire in most instances, unless you're going to Russia or something.
Right.
But
tools, spare parts are, you know, kind of depends on the trip, depends on where you're going to be. So it's a common sense thing.
But also like with a brand new bicycle too, like I would imagine you hopefully shouldn't have the problems that you might have. Like my bike is 4 years old and I've ridden it thousands and thousands of miles, where it's getting to the point where like last year I cracked, you know, the derailleur on one side or whatever. Like those problems just happen after time. Whereas on a big trip like that you're planning with a brand new bike potentially, you should be able to go through that whole trip with no issues at all. You know, should I say? But yeah, you I don't know, like all I carry and all if I were doing your trip, like all I would carry is like the multi-tool, bike pump, spare tubes, and maybe like a spoke wrench in case one of the spokes, you know, were to break, and maybe bring one or two spare spokes. That's not heavy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're not going to be more than probably 25 miles from the nearest bike shop at any given time.
Yeah.
So, you know, and we'll be, you know, we're traveling in a relatively well-populated area. It's not like we're going to be out in the middle of Uzbekistan or something where we've got 100 miles in each direction of desert and freezing weather. So.
Yeah. And people, like, if you do break down, like, a lot of people think, like, if you do break down, it's the end of the world or something. But, like, especially in North America, like, if you lift up your tire in the air, somebody will probably help you. You know what I mean? Might take a little while, but someone will probably help you.
So another question that I had for you was regarding the machine itself. We've read a lot of different reviews between drifters and shifters, bar end shifters.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, we get into this thing where we're not real fond of the bar end shifters because of the fact that they're just kind of, we like them on the brakes.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're used to. But at the same time, we understand the practicality of having the simplicity of the bar end shifters.
Yeah.
So do you have experience with that?
Yeah, I've had them both ways, and I don't care either way. Like, the bar end shifters I thought would be annoying at first, like, because I was used to the more traditional, you know. But after about 3 days, I was like, oh, it's like I don't even think about it anymore. You just reach down and do it, you know. So, but also like you're talking about carrying a dog, you know, and especially if you have Yeah, especially if you have a trailer, like you're taking your hand off the handlebars and reaching down, even just for a millisecond. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so
Right.
maybe you might want to go the other way, where you have the brakes and the shifters. Hello,
Yeah.
Sorry.
combine.
This is Cody.
Cody,
This is my wife, Emily.
Emily.
hi.
He's just a little guy.
Yeah, I was gonna ask how big he was because I
He's-
don't really know dogs very well. So if you told
It's
me
a
what
little
type he
10
was,
pounds.
yeah.
We actually got we got really inspired to bring him with us. We watched a couple videos from a woman. She's got a website called Touring Tunes, and she's got a dog named Petunia, and she's crossed the country twice.
Wow.
And her name is Jamie, and she actually kind of manufactured a trunk dog carrier, and she mounted it to her back rack
Yeah.
and on the top, and then she's got this kind of harness system where she actually has the dog harnessed into the trunk, and then kind of jerry rigged sun cover, and it's very, very cool. Rainfly,
cool.
it's the coolest thing in the world. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
So we got inspired.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Did you happen to see any of the photos or videos from me in Sweden earlier this year? Because I was traveling with this couple from Spain, and they had their dog with them, and I'll have to send you the link.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because yeah, like they did the exact same thing. They had the dog in this, I don't know, basket on their rear, but the dog was, I would guess, 4 times as big as your dog. You know?
Wow.
Yeah. So
it didn't have its own kind of tag, like a trailer. It was actually on the bike.
yeah. So
40 dog on a bike. That's
something
that's,
I don't know, something like that. Maybe 30 pounds. But yeah. But yeah. So I think that's totally possible for a dog your size. But then, like, also the dog should be well trained to stay in there too, and not want to, you know.
Yeah, he's very well trained, and he's got. We've been kind of acclimating him. We've got baskets on the bikes that we have now, and so he's being kind of slowly but surely acclimated to it. He won't jump out even given the opportunity, but I still think that, you know, having him in there for long distances, 20, 30 miles at a pop, it will be important for him to have some sort of a system that keeps him in the basket.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, the couple that I traveled with this past summer, their names were Pablo and Anna, and their dog was just so well trained. I mean, the Pablo had it where he told it to get in the basket, while the bike was even in motion, and the dog would jump in and jump out while it was riding,
Wow.
But I mean, Pablo's bike was so heavy because it was loaded down not only with his stuff, but the dogs and I think probably a bunch of stuff he didn't need also. But like every time he ran into a little hill, the dog would have to get out and run alongside because Pablo basically couldn't pedal up the hill with the dog in there, So, like, I don't know, that I think might be one of my reasons to lean more towards the trailer, actually. Just because, like, you have a lower center of gravity, it makes it easier to pump and stuff, and doesn't affect the dog in the back, Because when you're, like, when I go uphill, I really push the bike sideways to sideways, but if you got a dog in there, you're probably not going to want to do that as much.
Yeah, you're limited to the amount of kind of torque that you can.
Yeah. So I don't know.
My wife was just saying that she's the one who would be carrying the dog.
Oh, okay.
So she's not as aggressive climber. I mean, she climbs very well, but she's not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Okay. Well.
So, what about gearing? One of the things that the long haul trucker was really attractive was because it had this giant pie plate in the back.
Yeah.
It's, triple up front, and it's kind of geared almost like a mountain bike. It's pretty incredible. Do you have any particular recommendations with regard to gearing, or just the biggest you can go? Or
yeah, pretty much. I mean, you're always going to want one more. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. Like my bike now, like it has super low gears, and I don't know if I've ever, like, in the last 4 years, I don't know if I've hit a hill where I was like, man, I wish I had a lower gear.
Right.
Like that I really needed it. Sure, I would have liked it just to been like that much more comfortable or whatever.
Psychologically speaking.
Yeah. But the problem that I have on my bike is like if I want to go fast, that's actually like kind of hard to do. Like I have really slow gears but no fast gears. You know what I mean? So you make that compromise also.
Sure.
But no, I don't know. I kind of think you just leave it up to the manufacturers. Like I've ridden that Trek, for example. Like I think the gears on that are fine for 99% of all the hills out there that you're going to run into, you know. And if you do run into those one hill, like just get off the bike and push or whatever, you know.
Right.
Like yeah. So I don't know. Like yeah, for that one extra gear or whatever that the Surly might have.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would push me personally at least. It wouldn't push me towards that bike just for that one little thing, or even two.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have any general experience with well, I mean, I'm sure you do, but with kind of catastrophic failure of the bike on a trip, and what happens when, you said a minute ago that things things are never that bad, but when things really do go that bad, do you
well,
have any...
Yeah, like my second trip, it's hard to, I mean, I don't know if I've ever told this story or not, but on my first trip, I completed like this big long distance bike tour, and my aunt and uncle came to the Mexican-American border to pick me up at the end of the trip, and my aunt has this Volkswagen van where the bike rack is on the front of the van. And anyway, so we put the bike on the front of the van, and my aunt, she was going through a signal and the light turned yellow, and she wasn't like sure should she stop really quick or should she go, you know what I mean? And so she tried to go really quick, but there was like a dip in the road, and my bike was on the front of the car, and so like the bike went down into the dip, and she basically just ran my bike over and like destroyed the bike. Like that was like the last day of my first bike trip. So I was like, yes, I completed the whole trip, and then my whole bike is gone, you know. But the following summer, I like hammered the bike out, you know, like hammered the wheels out, and then tried to ride that bike across the country. And I got like 3/4 of the way across, and then I was like, this bike is toast. Like it kept falling apart. Like I was breaking spokes all the time, but it was because I tried to use a junk bike basically that had been run over by a car. So on that particular trip, I mean I didn't have the money to buy a new bike at the time out in the middle of nowhere, so I just kind of packed it up and went home. Which what I should have done was bought the new bike before I even went on the trip, you know. So that's why you want to have a bike that works, because I've done long trips on bikes that don't, and it sucks. But like as far as catastrophic failure, I've never had anything like that. Like I've had my wheels break and the derailleur, you know, problems and things like that, but none of that wasn't fixable, you know. But I have had like readers, like especially with the main problem I've had, my readers have is like using bikes with carbon frames or forks. You know, and I try to tell them, like, especially if you're putting weight on there, it's not a good idea, you know. And so I've had so many people go out with those carbon forks, and then they break on like day 3, and then they're out there with no bike, basically, you know.
We've read time and again, same story.
Yeah.
Try to save weight by, going with a light frame and carbon fiber, whatever. Seat states, try to save every gram, and then load it up on the panniers with, bring more stuff, but have a light bike.
Doesn't work very well.
Well,
it works sometimes. I've heard of people doing it, but I think it's like a very risky sort of thing. So,
how heavy are you when you ride? Not you personally, but how heavy is your rig?
Because I'm carrying like a laptop and 3 cameras and 2 hard drives and stuff, I weigh like 90 pounds. My bike, does.
Wow.
And then when I put water and food on there, I could be close to 100 pounds.
Wow.
So it's pretty darn heavy. But I would not recommend that to other people. Like, if I were doing like my first America trips, cross America trips, I could probably pack everything I need in my 2 rear panniers and be pretty lightweight, even all the camping gear and everything. So
the benefit that we have is that because my wife and I are together, we can share weight, and we don't have to have 2 of everything.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a nice trade-off to like you said, you can have still have some of the things, but not necessarily have everything, 2 of everything.
Yeah, but then you have the dog. So there's the dog's weight, plus the dog food, plus water for the dog,
right,
plus toys for the dog, or a mat for the dog to sleep on. Right. So you know what I mean? That all, like, just right there, you might be carrying 40 pounds or something.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like, where I think like you guys are gonna maybe have to sacrifice something on your side,
right,
in order to make the dog more comfortable. Yeah.
Well, this has been extremely informative.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Stay in touch.
All right. Absolutely. Right. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hello there. It's September 10th, 2015. I'm in the forest just outside of Umeå, Sweden, and today is the official last day of cycling that I have for my 2015 bike tour. I've been traveling non-stop for the last 19 months all across Europe and Asia. Today is the last day. I have 35 kilometers to cycle into the city center of Umeå, Sweden. Once I get there, I'm going to rent an apartment for the last 4 nights, pack up my bike, and fly back to the United States. So this is it.